Hello and welcome to week 3 of online learning. Guys, you are doing a fantastic job. I am so proud of you and we are getting through this together. If you are having questions, issues, don't forget I do have live sessions Tuesdays and Thursdays at 11 in Zoom, and you are more than welcome to bring questions to that. So today I wanted to review a little bit of what we learned last week from Monday, and then this week we're actually going to put some scientific method into practice. We're going to do a virtual lab Tuesday and Wednesday, and then on Thursday I want to try to do a lab, which means at home if you have a balloon, a string, and a straw, that is awesome. If you're not able to get one, I don't want you to go out and buy one or worry about it. You can do the assignment without actually having the materials, because I'm going to make a video of it. And all I'm asking you to do is identify independent and dependent variables. But if you have the materials, it's kind of a fun lab. So you can get them by Thursday. Awesome. If not, do not worry about it at all. Okay. For Monday, we are doing a variables and control group review just to make sure that we are really solid on all of those parts of a lab. Okay. So just to refresh our memory, when we say IV, oops, Miss Mandridge is in the way again. There we go. When we say IV, we're talking about the independent variable, and that's the factor that's being changed from trial to trial in the experiment. So if I want to know if something has an effect, I'm going to change it from trial to trial, and that's my independent variable. Okay? Then my dependent variable, my DV, is what I'm going to measure as a result. So if I want to know whether making silly, stupid videos what causes 8th graders to watch my videos more, I'm going to make a super boring, serious video, and then I'm going to make a super fun video, and I'm going to see which one my students watch more. So my independent variable would be the type of movie I'm making, and then my dependent variable would be how many students watch it. Okay? Just saying. The thing that might be new to you as an 8th grader is this idea of the experimental group and the control group. Okay? I talked about this last Thursday, and I brought up superstitions. Okay? So we say that if you break a mirror, you're going to have 7 years of bad luck. Is that really true? I don't think so, but I could measure it by having an experimental group, a group that breaks mirrors, and a control group, a group that does not break a mirror, and then I can compare them to see which one actually had bad luck, okay? How many bad accidents happened to them or something like that, okay? So the experimental group to review is the group that is exposed to the IV or the independent variable, so it's where something is changed to see if it has an effect. The control group is the group that we leave in normal conditions, or it's the group without the independent variable. And the reason we even do a control group is we use it to compare with the experimental group. Did changing the independent variable really have that much of an effect? The only way to know that is to have an experimental group and then to have a control group. So the control group kind of rules out whether it's just a coincidence, because we can measure the group with the independent variable, the experimental group, versus the group without the independent variable, or the control group. Okay, so we're going to do a quick review. If we were in class, I would give each of you a whiteboard, we'd hold up our answers, and it would be a competition. We don't get to be together though, so here's what we're going to do. I am going to show the question, I'm going to pause, and I want you to try to think of the answer before I say it. Okay, number 1, it's a good way for you to review. And number 2, I'm going to give you a virtual high five, right, for getting it right. I don't know. Okay. So here's an example of an experiment. Okay. The experiment's going to be in red. The question's going to be in black right here. So I want to see if the brand of popcorn has an effect on the time it takes to fully pop. Okay. So do different brands of popcorn take more or less time to pop? Well, I'm going to ask myself, what is the IV? What's the independent variable? Okay. What is the thing that we are changing from trial to trial? Did you guess it? We are changing the brand of popcorn. That's right. So I'm going to change the brand of popcorn. That's my independent variable. And I'm going to see how long it takes to pop. And how long it takes to pop is my dependent variable because it depends on the brand of popcorn, right? Here's another one. Here's some gross little mold. Oh, no, that's yeast. Okay, read the question, Miss Mandridge. Okay, the question is, I want to see if different amounts of yeast in bread have an effect on the time that it takes to rise. Okay, and now I'm wondering what is the dependent variable. So remember, another strategy to remember independent and dependent variable is to ask yourself cause and effect. The independent variable is going to be the cause, the dependent variable is going to be the effect. So looking at this, I want to see if different amounts of yeast have an effect on the time it takes to rise. So what would be my cause? Well, that would be the different amount of yeast. So then what would be my effect or my DV? Think about it. That's right. If you said the time it takes to rise, that's my dependent variable. I can measure the time it takes the bread to rise, and that is my dependent variable, depending on how much yeast I added. All right, Kool-Aid. Sorry. In this one, it says, I want to see if different amounts of Kool-Aid have an effect on the amount of sugar it has. Okay, so different colors of Kool-Aid, if it has an effect on the amount of sugar. So what is my independent variable? What am I changing? What do I want to see if it actually has an effect? I feel like the Jeopardy music should be playing right now. Right. I'm changing the different colors. Okay, I'm changing the color of Kool-Aid, and that's my independent variable that I'm going to see if it has an effect on the amount of sugar. Uh-oh, here's one of those control group questions. So let's remind ourselves our control group is the group that's in normal conditions or that does not have the independent variable because we want to compare with the experimental group. So let's read the experiment. I want to see if adding different amounts of salt to water has an effect on the time it takes to boil. Okay? So remember, if I want to know my control group, a really good strategy is to figure out my IV, my independent variable. So I want to see if adding different amounts of salt. Ding, ding, ding. Different amounts of salt. That's my independent variable. So what would my control group be? I remember Miss Mandridge said something about this last week. She said that the control group is the group without the independent variable. That's right. So the control group in this experiment would be some water with no salt. Okay, so if I want to know the effect of different amounts of salt on how fast the water will boil, my control group would be a group where I don't add any salt at all. Okay, that way I can tell, does adding the salt really have an effect on how fast it boils? I can tell because I had a pot of water with no salt. Okay, couple more. Here's one. Here's an experiment that says I want to see if the type of candy bar has an effect on how many of them are sold in the Mander store. Okay, what is the Mander store, you might ask? If we were in person in class, I do sell food in my classroom sometimes. And so the Mander store is where you can buy delicious snacks. I want to know if the type of candy bar has an effect on how many of those candy bars I'm going to sell. So what is my DV? What's my dependent variable? I'm going to measure how many of each candy bar that I sell, right? So if you were thinking that the DV is how many are sold, you are correct, okay? So in this one, the type of candy bar on how many I sell, the dependent variable is how many of each kind I sell. Okay, I'm going to do one more example with control group, and then I'm going to show you the worksheet for today. So this one says, I want to see if the color of fabric has an effect on the number of quilts I sell. Okay, this one is a little bit tricky. But I'm going to walk you through how we could find a control group with this. So remember, the best way to start finding control group is to know what your independent variable is. We're old pros at that. So I look at this and I see I want to know if the color of fabric has an effect on the number of quilts I sell. Well, the thing that I would be changing from trial to trial is the color of fabric, okay? That's my independent variable. So if control group is the group without the independent variable, I have to think, okay, if I'm really looking at the effect of the color of fabric, maybe I'm just going to use plain white or plain gray. I'm going to choose something that I can compare the rest of the colors to. So it says, what is a good control group? There's not just one right answer. Okay, so I can make a quilt, I could say with no color, but does that really make sense? So I could say a quilt that is just gray or just plain white. And then I could compare if the brighter colors are what actually make the quilts sell. So that's an example of control group. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get out of my slides, and I'm going to go to your assignment for today. So in Schoology, you should see a Google Doc assignment that is called Variables and Controls. So you're going to click on the name of the assignment, and then remember, we learned this last week, we're going to click on the one that says My Document. That way you can fill your Google Doc out right there in Schoology, and you can submit it to me inside of Schoology, okay? So remember, after my instructions, click on the next little tab that says My Document. Okay, there are 4 experiments on this worksheet, and I'm going to do number 1 with you. So by watching the video, it's a bonus. I'm going to go through the very first one with you. It says, in the experiments below, type the independent and dependent variables, a hypothesis, and then my experimental and control groups, okay? So you're going to have the name of the experiment or a brief description, and then you're going to identify those parts that we've been working on, IV, DV, experimental group, control group, that sort of thing. Okay, so here's experiment 1. It says plants grow best in blue lights. Is that true? I can make an experiment to find that out. So let me look at it and see what my independent variable would be. Plants grow best in blue light. So what am I changing from trial to trial? That's right, the color of light. Or you could even say using blue light. There's multiple right answers here. But I'm going to change the color of light. And then what am I going to see if it has an effect on? Well, I want to know if plants grow best in blue light. So I want to know if the color of light, that's my independent variable, has an effect on the plant's growth. Good job. So plant's growth. And I could even give it a unit because I'm going to be measuring it. So I'm going to say the plant growth in centimeters. If you just put plant growth, I'm still going to count that as correct. Okay, but I know that my independent variable is the color of light, and my dependent variable is going to be the plant growth. Okay, so here's that hypothesis. And remember, we said a hypothesis has 3 magic words. Those words are if, then, and because. So I'm going to say if. Last week we learned that I can plug in my IV. So if the color of lights changes, then, that's my second magic word, then the growth of the plant, or the plant growth, right, will change because, okay, and remember this is the part where you have to be creative or you have to use your background knowledge. I'm going to say because different colors of light give plants more or less nutrients. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that for our purposes. And then for experimental group and control group, remember, I have to remember that the experimental group is the one I'm experimenting on. I'm going to change them in some way. So my experimental group is going to be the group with my IV. So I'm going to call it the group with blue light, okay? Or you could say the group with different light. And then my control group is the group without the IV. So there's 2 ways this could go. I could say that it's the group with no light. Or if you remember way back at the beginning of this video, I said that the control group could also be the one in normal conditions. So it could just be a group in normal light, normal sunlight, right? So control group, there's two possible answers. You could write either one and I will be happy. You could do it as the group with no light, or you could choose to write the group with normal sunlight. Okay? Either of those are correct. Your control group can be different things as long as it's some group that you're using to compare the rest of your results with. So that's number one. All you need to do is numbers 2, 3, and 4 on your Google Docs. So still fill in number 1, but we went over the answers together, right? And then you need to do 2, 3, and 4. You need to turn this in to me by the end of Tuesday. So you have Monday and Tuesday to get this submitted, and on Tuesday you will also be creating a Gizmo account because we're going to do a virtual lab this week and I want you to create a Gizmo account. We will go over that in my next video on Tuesday, but I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and remember, please message me with any questions. Thank you.